how can we promote the responsible and sustainable tourism. And for that reason, we have today an amazing guest that is our marketing director from the Tri Nation NGO. He will join us in a couple of minutes, and we will have amazing conversation with him because he's very specialized on this topic, and he has amazing and great information to give us to understand how can we contribute to avoid the CO2 emissions and also the climate changes that is a really concern that people is not taking serious at the moment, not enough, I believe, and he will share with us this information. So basically, by participating on Bike4tourism, we will contribute to an environmental cause. One of them that will be available, it's Tri Nation. Eventually can be the lucky one that we select at the end to be the one that all tickets will contribute for that. But if it's not that one, if you go for a gold ticket, you have the opportunity to give a donation of 20 euros by participating on a Bike4tourism event. If not, of course, Philip will also give us a tip how you can participate actively by your donation on the website. So he will explain all of this. I will give you full time so you can explain exactly the work of Tri Nation and the big impact and the concerns that we should have nowadays to avoid climate change and at least to reduce the impact that we are having nowadays in our life.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Right. So let me start off with why Tri Nation exists. Why is there a platform like ours that focuses on planting trees and helping the day-to-day people and businesses to offset their CO2 emissions? And the reason behind it is climate change. And back in 2006, where the CEO, Maxime Renaudin, started it, it was a topic that many people did not understand. It was a topic that many companies or people only had like a shallow understanding of. So planting trees seemed like a really ridiculous idea back in the day. But nowadays, within the last couple of years, as education around the topic and a lot of the consequences of climate change have really reached the mass media, there has been a lot more attention on our sector, and a lot more people are starting to care and see the actual consequences behind climate change. So I think it's really important for people to understand that climate change will impact them a lot more than they think. Right? This is, I think, the number one false belief that we have around the world, as citizens of the world, is that climate change is not as big of a problem as people are making it out to be. You just have more dangerous weather, a little bit of flooding. That's completely not true. The problem of climate change is very deep. It's a long-term process. The consequences are a long-term process. It will take some time until they're realized. But the really difficult thing is that the longer it takes to see the problem, the harder it is for people to react and do something about it. And when the time comes when the consequences of climate change are so serious that nobody in the world denies them, it's going to be far harder to change them than they are today. And this is really why Tri Nation started back in 2006, because Max was part of this niche of people that knew that we need to act now, right? And time is really running out. So let me just quickly give you an overview, and maybe some people might find this kind of scary or just a really difficult topic to talk about, but it can't be ignored. And I really don't want to be skipping over, what are the things that motivate me to work on this company, which is, by the way, fully not for profit, and, and to spend my time day to day just to try and mitigate climate change. So slight temperature increases around the world can have a gigantic impact. The way that the world's headed right now with fossil fuel emissions, with the energy that we use on a day-to-day basis, all of it contributes to climate change due to the greenhouse effect, right? And even a slight increase in the average temperatures around the world can have a massive impact. Like a 1 degree Celsius average temperature around the world can cause some kilometers of ice to melt, can cause a slight couple of centimeter increase in sea level in places around the world. And the things that people don't realize is the huge population that lives in areas close to the sea with where the sea level is only a couple of centimeters. So that's one part of the problem. And then the other part is agricultural decreases and extreme weather events. And the part that really gets to me again is the agricultural produce decreases in the most vulnerable areas of the world, which is Southern America, Africa, Southern Asia, where people really rely on their harvest and agriculture to survive. We could see agricultural decreases on a year-by-year production anywhere from 5% to 50%. It does mean that we will have also better harvest in the northern world, but it will, on a net basis, we're just going to have a move of the harvest from the areas that need it most to the wealthier areas. And this is predicted to all of these things together, like the migration of people from areas that are being flooded, the extreme weather events, the lack of food, the decrease of food supply is estimated to result in a climate refugee crisis. And if you really want to really start caring about climate change, just research the climate refugee crisis. Once you see that, you will really understand what's going on and why this is an extremely serious problem. Ever since I learned, it just changed my life. Like ever since I learned, I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I can, to work towards preventing or mitigating this climate refugee crisis. So what it is in a nutshell is potentially around 100 million people that will be displaced from the southern areas of the world by 2050, and they pretty much have to migrate to the north, to areas of the world where they can get food, there's some actionable government, there's places where they can live in safely. So if you compare just so you understand the refugee crisis from Syria in Europe within the last decade, that was only around 5 million people, and it was already a huge problem. So just imagine if it's 100 million people, right? So this is just what people really have to understand, how serious this problem is. And how Tree Nation ties into this is kind of with the frustration where we all know all these scary things about climate change, but we have no solution. We don't know what to do. How can we, on a day-to-day basis, actually start doing something about this? Like, there's no point in just being upset, and crying for the rest of our lives, and not enjoying the time that we have right now if we don't have a solution. But we do. There's so many things that we can do. And the problem was always, access and education around these things. And one of the subjects, and of course, there's a whole spectrum of things you can do about climate change, but the one that we focus on, the one that has a huge impact to not only the climate, but also to local communities, is tree planting. So trees pretty much feed themselves through the process of photosynthesis. So it's a really fancy word, but the only thing that it really means is that trees take in carbon dioxide and water. They use it for nutrients, for glucose, to feed themselves and grow, and then they produce oxygen and also some water on the other end, right? And this is some fundamental biology. And this is a very simple machine that grows organically and naturally. And that pretty much does the opposite of our greenhouse gas emissions. So the CO2 that we emit with our day-to-day activities, where we use electricity from fossil fuels, that can be reversed and goes back into nature. Yeah, with the planting of trees. So one of the main solutions offered or proposed by bodies around the world, like you have many other organizations and governments aware of this, is to plant 1 trillion trees. And if we plant 1 trillion trees, if we can increase the number of trees around the world, I think right now we're around 3 trillion trees being around the world. So something like that. I didn't check this out lately. And so the idea is to really increase add another third of that onto the world, and that's estimated that could really slow down climate change by around 30%. So it could be a really impactful thing that we can do. But what people don't realize, right, is how deep and how difficult the problem of reforestation is. There's people around the world now that really feel that just planting trees is going to be just because some people are going to plant trees is gonna solve the problem. But that's not the case. And this is one thing I really want people to understand, is that we need to really, really significantly speed up the rate of trees that we're planting and find ways to decrease the rate of trees that we're cutting down. Yeah, because our problem is not only that we're not planting enough trees. We're trying to plant more and more trees. With Tree Nation, we're this year, we're probably going to plant between 4 to 5 million trees. And there's obviously other organizations and governments, like the Pakistani government did some great work, planting billions of trees. So there's huge momentum and people that want to make an impact. But at the same time, what people are not focusing on, and this is something once again that we cover at Tree Nation, we have an education series, is the rates of deforestation. So this is just one thing that's always ignored. Like, okay, we're now planting this huge amount of trees, but in the background there's people doing the opposite of what we're doing. And usually in for-profit organizations and companies, and they're cutting down trees to create land for either for cattle, for palm oil production. It's usually deforestation occurs in order to supply the economy with some consumer product, right? So there's loads of really unsustainable products that you would never expect. Right? So palm oil it's pretty much an oil that helps to keep goods fresh and allows you to kind of to package a good, keep it stored for a long time, and then use it really quickly. And a really good example would be pot noodles, right? So I'm a person that really likes pot noodles, right? And that actually ties into deforestation because palm oil is used for their production, and there's companies around the world that deforest the world in order to produce palm oil. So part of what we do at Tree Nation is to go in those areas where there's huge rates of deforestation and select projects specifically in those areas to help reverse the process. By the year 2100, we could have no tropical forests. By the year 2200, we could have no trees. Something's not adding up. So it's not making sense. So this is really, we need to raise awareness of not only why we need to start planting trees at scale fast, but also that we need to start figuring out how to stop deforesting the world and how to really educate the people in the areas where it's happening, because it's usually in areas that are not very educated around climate change. Like, these are not some evil people. These are people making a living, usually in around the Amazon, in Brazil. Brazil is #1 deforestation country in the world. Indonesia, Congo. So it's really about it. Our mission is not only about planting trees, it's also about spreading education, because just planting trees won't be enough. We need to do both.
For one side, we need definitely to reduce deforestation, reduce the consumption, and then for the other side, to bring it more and more trees to be planted.
It would be really wrong to see this as it's a reforestation problem, or it's a consumption problem, or it's a recycling problem, or anything like that. That's the wrong way to see it. This is one global problem of the way that we live, of our day-to-day. It's just been ignored for so long, and now we're forced to act. That's the scary truth, right? Okay, so I want to jump onto the Tree Nation platform. I'll go onto the screen now. And I want to really demonstrate to people how simple it is to plant trees on Tree Nation, and also how to track your impact and track how the trees are doing over time. We have over 100 planting projects which are under construction on our website. So these are our partners. These are organizations or communities that either we set up or we partner with that grow the trees for us, right? And we select them depending on need. As I said before, tropical regions, rainforests, they're all areas which really need reforestation. So we do. So I know that you wanted to discuss how we select them, and that's one part. But then the other part is we also want to combine tree planting with communal benefits. As you can see here, each project that we take on and we open for funding, we allow people around the world to plant trees there from their laptop. They also have additional benefits, right?
Yeah, in reality, and while you are preparing this part, just to let you know that each ticket on Bike4tourism has a percentage of money that is going to a sustainable cause. And what I find very interesting with you is that automatically we can send the voucher saying, okay, you have this plant, now go there and plant it. So this is people will receive automatically the voucher and to decide where they want to plant.
This is what I meant. This is the plant trees button. So if you want to plant a tree, it's really as simple as going here.
Yep.
And then here's your entire selection. So any project that you want, right? You can either let us select it for you, or you can choose any of these options. There's really a lot of them. And as I was saying before, you can choose any tree species you want here. So there's huge selection and huge customization. And you really need to consider, how do you want to impact? Because it's not only that you're planting a tree, you're also planting a tree that can help feed the community, that can help fight desertification in the community, that will have scientific studies in that area. So your actual impact on that area of the world is also something to consider, not only fighting climate change and planting trees, which is why we really wanted it to be a solution like that, right? So here you just select how many trees you want to plant. You can also send a gift. This is one of the really cool features. If you want to gift it to a planter or you want to gift it to a friend, we have a nice selection of pictures and videos. You just choose a message and then you plant your tree. So this is really how simple it is. You can plant a tree in 2 minutes. Like it will take you no time, right? And now I want to show you. So let's say you plant your tree. So how are you going to track this? And this is, our company forest, the trees that we've planted. And this is this is where we track everything, right? So this is every single time we have we've done a planting event. It could be from one tree, could be to a couple of tens of thousands of trees that we've done from our company budget. We can track all of them here, right? So we can press into it. We can see all this information, like where was it exactly planted over here? What species was it? What project was it? And we can even get a certificate, right? So that just opened in a new window. So this is just to prove where it is. And another thing that you can do is follow what's going on at the projects, right? So we also have planters. So another thing you should really understand about Tree Nation, that it's not only the people that want to plant trees that are here, it's also the actual planters, right? So these are different projects that we have planted with in this account, and they have to post week-on-week updates of what's going on in the field, right? So it's amazing. You can have a back and forth conversation with the people planting your trees. The final thing I want to show you here is your impact. So you can track the impact of the account, right? So every time you open an account, you have your own digital forest, which is like our name of calling that one place where you store all the information. And here's, for example, the impact of our Tree Nation forest that we've created. So we see exactly where we planted the trees. We see how much area it covers. We see how many tons of CO2, and we have all of this, over time, which is really cool. I think it's relevant. Everybody here works for a company. I can assume that, or the vast majority of people, or you have your own company. And one of the big focuses of Tree Nation is to help to turn our economy, which is composed of these companies, to be eco-friendly, to be sustainable. So how can we make, the big players that are, producing so-and-so CO2 emissions and polluting in these different ways, how can we, rather than complain about them and give out to them, how can we help them be more sustainable? This is really our attitude in Tree Nation. There's no point in just pointing fingers. We want solutions. We want to solve problems. So this is why we created this suite. And this is something that I really highly recommend you have a look at on our page in the plant companies. And you can see all the different ways you can offset as a company. You can offset your website, your team, your day-to-day activities in the office, and your products. So whenever you sell, you can automatically plant a tree and send it to your clients. So, and we're going to keep on improving this. We're really going to help not only your day-to-day person, but also your company to to have an impact and to become CO2 neutral. So that's really the end of my presentation.
Yeah. In reality, we have already the Bike4tourism forest that Amelie created when we had the first conversation, and exactly like everybody that is going to participate and donate to Tree Nation under Bike4tourism event, it's going to plant this forest of Bike4tourism, and then we can see the results after a couple of years. The result that we are creating, and this is fantastic. Can you explain better how a company can get in touch with you and start to promote actively the reforestation?
So the way, if you want to join as a company, it's the simplest process ever. Go to the page, like you see in the bottom right, you have a chat. Click on the chat, and in most cases, you will have somebody from our team already ready to talk to you, ready to hop on a call and explain everything. Or you can leave us a message, and we will get onto it immediately on the same day and reply to you and get this thing going. So yeah, we have really loads and loads of attention around this. And the thing that I think companies really like, and they really tell us about this, is the ability to have their forest, this digital forest that we're talking about, on their website, right? So whenever people come to their website, they can see immediately that, oh, we have a digital forest, and you can see right there every tree that you planted, and where it was planted, and every time you send a tree, or every time you plant a tree, it will be sent as an email gift to your customer when they buy a product. So this is another part of this whole ecosystem that we're building.
And one thing that I would like to speak on this conversation is about the collaboration that you have with the local community. So many of your projects, it's not you don't have a team on Tree Nation that is going to recognize, to make the recognition of the place. And in many projects, I would say, it's the opposite. It's usually the community that comes to you, you make the evaluation, and then you decide to move forward. So can you explain one or two examples how it works?
So it works both ways, right? So we do go and look for projects. We do go and look to start projects, with communities, with partners, or even our own, but for the most part, we have so many people coming to us that we're at this point where we kind of have to hand choose. We can't even handle all of the new projects coming in right now, because we just need to find a faster way to onboard them and verify them, right? Because it's not as simple as a project coming to us and we're like, okay, you're open for funding, people can plant in your project, because there's so many things, and it's something that cannot be ignored or just brushed under the carpet in the sector. Planting trees is not easy. Planting trees is not an easy activity. It's like a big migration. It's a migration of people from areas usually from the south, that have been affected by mainly flooding. Just even a couple of centimeters can make such a big difference. Like, you can't live your life if all the time you have 5 centimeters of water like in your house. You can't live your life. You have to
plant.
Leave. Yeah, you can't plant. You can't really move around. There's so many problems. It's insane. It's not livable. Obviously, the lower food production is a whole nother area of this dangerous climate. So the way I see this, I think people really need to understand that, for one, and for two, we really need to take responsibility, because the vast majority of climate change, the vast majority of what's causing this refugee crisis, is not the people that will be refugees. It's people in the first world, like us, using internet, living our luxurious lifestyle. What caused climate change was not the countries that are going to suffer the most from it. The ones that cause climate change will suffer a lot less.
The topic of tourism and the impact of tourism on climate changes.
Yes, tourism is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And the entire tourism is practically linked with transportation in a huge way. Tourism gives meaning to life. It gives money. It spreads money around. It creates jobs. It spreads money from richer countries to poorer countries. It's a very important part of humanity, and the human nature. And I think that the best way to go about solving tourism is really finding the best ways to get to where you want to go. So obviously, bike is perfect, but you're not going to cycle from Germany to Spain unless you're extremely dedicated, right? So then the idea is, how can we make that journey eco-friendly, but not only eco-friendly, also as convenient as the alternative, right? So this is a really big deal, right? So it's easy to say, okay, let's all be eco-friendly tomorrow, right? And although everybody wants to, it's still the option of taking a train from, let's say, Barcelona to Berlin for 2 hours versus a plane for 2 hours versus a train for like 18 hours. That in itself has to be accounted for. People don't have that much time to spend. People don't want to go on 18-hour train trips when they can go on a 2-hour trip. So it's really about, how can we make it convenient and easy to travel around in an eco-friendly way? And I think that electric cars becoming autonomous, that could be very helpful, for these long distances. Yeah.
But I'm very happy to have you on board of Bike4tourism. and hopefully your cause will be one of the causes that we will support most. And thank you, Philippe, for your presence today, and see you soon. Thanks.
No problem. See you
Bye-bye.
guys. Thank you.